Okay, welcome to this video where you will need a lot of paper to watch it completely. This is top 21 animes that you can't miss. He has entered the school he wanted, but since it's far from home, he decides to rent an apartment near his school. When he arrives at the apartment, the landlady tells him that there has been a mix-up, and if he wants to stay there, he'll have to share it with a salaryman named Kenjasama. Although Misaki initially refused, he soon ends up agreeing to share the place. It seems that the vanillas have taken over this season, as Ikinari is one of the many that belong to this genre. Now the anime tries to put us in the mood by showing us the interactions of the fighters before entering the ring, which are full of cute and tender comedic moments, making the environment gradually become pleasant and easier to watch the anime. However, when they finally enter the ring, the fight is somewhat boring. After the good atmosphere they created, I was expecting something more cheerful or entertaining, but instead, they give us a fight where they barely hit each other. Although they have a nice fight where they show their affection, I can't help but feel that they owe me something. If we're talking about H with good battles, here we are. She is the school's idol. In the eyes of her classmates, she is perfect and beautiful in everything she does. The only bad thing about her is that a boy follows her everywhere. However, she actually wants to play unconventional games, so when she is caught by the boy who follows her, she decides to make him her fighting partner. This anime shows us the hidden side of the moon, as those girls who seem to be role models and have high morals turn out to be fans of combat, so they have to hide their identity to enjoy their passion without anyone criticizing them. That's why anyone can enjoy this anime, as there won't be any romance or blackmail, but only how two people enjoy the fights. That's why the battles are a delight, as each movement and technique used by the waifus highlights their beauty and grace, while also demonstrating how much they have trained to reach that level of skill, to the point that the fighters will be on the verge of collapse for having to face such strong rivals. However, the sweat on their skin and their strong gaze show that they won't stop fighting until the waifus are satisfied, captivating the viewer and making you unable to blink. Are you tired of girls suffering, tentacles, NTR, and weird stuff? Well, I'm sure you'll like this, H, because it's calm in every aspect. This, H, is the type that you start watching for adult content but end up getting engrossed in the story. A young couple lives happily in harmony. Let me explain how it all started. Some classmates talk about living alone, and the guy mentions he wants to move to his own apartment in the future, leading the girl to reveal that she already lives alone and has experience in it. He admires her luck, and on the way home, they reach her apartment, where she shyly invites him in to teach him basic household chores for living alone, eventually leading them to live together directly. Why don't these things happen to me? Oh, I know, because I never talk to women. And so, a love story begins with many moments where they both seriously read the Bible. Honestly, it bothers me a bit that such a cool girl like her is part of the H world and not the normal anime world. But well, what can we do? I'm just glad to know that she doesn't suffer like many others in other H animes. Yes, one of the best classics of the H genre, which has actually always caught my attention, so it couldn't be missing from this top. Here we see a dysfunctional family where there is a quite rebellious boy with a clear contempt for his stepmother. Leaving this moment, we realize that the mother receives mysterious calls from an envoy of the Lord, who dedicates himself to reciting some psalms to her over the phone, inviting her to get to know the one above. The woman has a very boring spiritual life, since every time she wanted to read the Bible with her partner, he rejects her because he is always tired. How strange, it's almost always the other way around. Finally, this situation makes the woman get tired and she ends up wanting to listen to the Catholic Christian stories with the boy on the phone, who even sent her a Bible, in quotation marks, of those that move on their own so that she can read it herself. From here, the mother follows the game of the boy on the phone, receiving more sacred artifacts from time to time, increasingly awakening her most Christian instincts. And on this occasion, By accident, she realizes that her hamster, which supposedly hated her, was reading Paul's letters in honor of her, realizing that the only thing the boy wants is for her to explain the apocalypse to him. This event only makes the mother think more about our sacred father, until the boy finds her while she was praying, where he obviously sets out to accompany her in her spiritual meditation. From here on, this family, but holy relationship begins, being a sacred secret that little by little gets out of control, escalating levels that they don't even imagine. Oh, and by the way, do you remember the person who made the calls? I wonder who it could have been. You'll find out if you watch it. It has 6 very enjoyable episodes. A university biologist who follows the teachings of his grandfather, who told him that there is a village of horny waifus out there in the forest that he must find. So, after getting lost, he meets Mana, a girl who becomes his friend, and he teaches her many things, but when he takes her home, she teaches him the pleasures of her flesh. After days of teaching, his older sister appears, who believes the protagonist is a bad person, but then he tells her that he won't say anything about this village, as people might take advantage of them. She understands that he's not a bad person, although she demands that he take responsibility for his younger sister. So the following nights continued, but as they were doing it in the same room as the sister, she was also added to the equation. However, as the genre indicates, the mother was missing. So who will appear? Well, his mother, and she also joins the equation. So, a foolish daughter plus a tsundere daughter plus a nymphomaniac mother equals the best H of the year. Kami Maki Sanachan Stages is a bit tangled in its story, but it's about how a guy gets a girlfriend. This girl runs away from home and has nowhere to stay, so she uses a mobile app to find this guy who offers her shelter and everything she needs in exchange for being his girlfriend. 2 years pass, and they are happily together. But besides that, we also discover that during those 2 years, there was something more. There was also an albino girl who joined them, and the 3 of them read the Bible together. So, after a long time, they will meet that albino girl again. But it seems that the protagonist has changed, and now only wants his girlfriend. However, in the future, they will probably start something new again. I say this because only the first chapter has been released, and there are still several more chapters to come in the future. Top 7. Kobashi is an office worker who is deeply in love and is preparing to celebrate his girlfriend's birthday. But just before leaving, she breaks up with him. His friend and coworker goes into wild mode and takes him out for drinks to forget his sorrows. Drinks keep coming and she ends up confessing her love. But Kobayashi still has a fresh wound, so he doesn't want to. But this is an H, so we all know that carrot is going to be soaked in vinegar at any moment. They effectively become a couple, but as they say, when one goes, 2 come. So one day Kobayashi runs into an old university classmate and they go out for a drink, and when we all thought the NTR moments were coming, well, no, as his Janaka marks his territory and ends up solving the problem as it should be, with some good slaps. Alright, in this position, we have an H anime that is somewhat ordinary but with an engaging story. It's one of those anime where you see the protagonist and think, I wish I had that kind of luck in real life. Setting that aside, this tale tells us about a guy who works on special games, feeling uninspired in his apartment, so he steps out onto the balcony for some fresh air. Yes, a twist taking in fresh air. Who would have thought? It didn't take long for him to notice a peculiar sound nearby, prompting him to investigate. He approaches his neighbor's balcony and sees a red-haired girl getting personally acquainted with Jesus Christ. The protagonist is captivated by the girl's magical finger skills, to the extent that he even considers getting some popcorn. Well, not literally, but he observes her in awe for quite a while. When she eventually notices him watching, she apologizes. Fortunately, she's kind-hearted and asks for his help in continuing on the path of Jesus Christ. What were the odds of that happening? 100%, because it's an H anime. Moving on, these two become close friends, praying to God whenever they can, to the point where they even read the Bible together on the train, all quite normal, until the doors open, And that's where the explanation ends. Takashi is a husband who doesn't pay much attention to his wife, as he always goes to adult anime conventions behind her back. His unsatisfied wife one day finds his magazines and starts playing the guitar, but just as someone knocks on the door, it's their neighbor Kasuya. Well, you know how this goes, a husband who leaves, a stranger's child who is raised. Well, at least this guy is happy in the anime. By the way, it has 2 chapters, and in the second one he disguises himself as some erotic character that I don't know, but he looks very good. We now delve into something many enjoy: sibling relationships. Picture this: your little sister comes home from school and tells you someone confessed their feelings to her. What do you do? Do you tell her to follow her heart? Do you maybe say she's still too young? Or do you march straight to the guy who confessed and give him a piece of your mind? Well, whatever you choose, you probably wouldn't do what this protagonist does. Instead of any of the aforementioned actions, he decides to be the first to read the Bible with his sister so no one else can. What a great brother, right? That's how it all unfolds. Thinking she was asleep, the brother seizes the opportunity to read the Bible with her. So, well, what can you do? That's life. It goes on with the sister starting to have trouble sleeping at night, and the doctor advises her to take pills to relax before bed. Instead, she pretends to take them and tells her brother she did, leading him to visit every night. Well, you know. Obviously, she's not sleeping, she's just pretending. Jesus cries blood when you see 2 siblings giving each other love, but celebrates it when they are step-siblings. This is a boy who has a gal as a stepsister. Apparently, they keep that secret at school, but at home, what they can't keep, because after watching their favorite anime, they start playing mommy and daddy. The curious thing about this anime is that most of the time it's in the first person, which gives a more pleasurable experience, as it feels like you're watching a browser's video, bro. Moreover, our favorite gal is willing to try anything and even does cosplay. It has 2 episodes and is the best gal anime of the year. Because what a piece of trash this was, and remember, don't have impure thoughts about your sisters. That's what your friends' sisters are for. In this fantasy setting, we witness how a girl ends up living alone and working in her parents' store after their passing. Everything seemed fine until she discovered her father had left behind a significant debt, which she now has to repay by selling the store or through other means. The man who informed her of this also offers her the option to earn money on the street in a way you can imagine. She goes out to see how it goes but ends up reading the Bible with them, and not getting paid. So, she decides to create a way to sell it and make money, as she, like her parents, knows a bit about pharmaceuticals. Yet, that won't solve anything. You know how it is, it's a mess, don't expect much more. And yes, a heads up, the second chapter holds a surprise. He is a great lover of astronomy, and what he enjoys the most is going to the park to watch the stars with his telescope. On one of his many night outings, he encounters a woman with a strange outfit and decides to leave the next day. While at school, he sees the girl from the previous night again, and from then on, they become great friends. The beginning of the anime seems to present the typical story where the life of a lonely person gradually improves thanks to the love of a waifu. And in fact, that's what happens. However, she soon realizes that her friend was looking for exciting fights rather than a strong rival, so no matter how many people challenge her, she will gladly accept. Now, although the waifu prefers to do her fights in public, they are not as impressive as I would like. However, there is a lot of passion in every blow of their flesh, and the effort of the fighters to win is noticeable. Their techniques and movements are quite ordinary, so although it will entertain you, I suggest you save it for when you have nothing else to do. A fantasy, anime. Here, we have an adventurous princess who obtains a sword for battles. But that turns out to be her biggest mistake since, according to legend, it's a cursed sword that essentially forces you to read the Bible. But to simplify, let me tell you from the beginning more calmly. As I mentioned, the princess acquires a sword, and the next day, she starts feeling strange, touching herself in rather intimate areas. It reaches a point where her childhood friend, who is also her assistant, has to help her. This information comes from an elf working as an advisor for the kingdom. Oddly enough, the elf knows how to remove the curse, or at least temporarily alleviate it, by reading the Bible. So, the guy has no choice but to assist the poor princess, along with her childhood friend. That's where everything unfolds. But wait, it doesn't end there, because you'll later find out that the cursed elf also wants to read the Bible, which will happen in episode 2. Oh, I forgot to mention that the princess has several strange dreams, but don't worry, nothing bad happens there. The name seems to be summoning the devil. What the heck? Imagine you're a lovely girl in love with the love of your life, wanting a peaceful life by their side. That peaceful life abruptly changes when you make a wish that completely alters it, a wish that ruins your normal life entirely. You really have to be foolish to do something like that. Anyway, getting back to the topic, if I think about it, the plot is similar to Inu and Shurkim, and you'll see why, as this H is about a girl who wishes upon a shooting star to stop being a flat-chested girl. The catch is, she didn't realize that wasn't a shooting star but a UFO that crashes into her home. This generous UFO decides to fix its mistake by creating a copy of her body but with bigger eyes. See? This is Inuyashiki, the H version. So, what happens next? Without revealing too much, the girl flaunts her body to other students and reunites with her beloved, where the guy will go on a journey to become like Moses, not to mention the literally wet dreams involving special water with her fortunate friend and current partner. Now, I want to send the aliens to see if something might grow on me. The animation is good, the girl is playful, the alien is a prankster, and it's uncensored. You just need to watch it. Here I'm going to go straight to the point. The first 7 minutes of the anime is a kind of game that the protagonist is playing, managing to have some very well-made biblical scenes. This happened in case you wanted to exalt these first minutes, which I recommend you don't do because it's important for the context of the protagonist. The protagonist is a teacher at a very prestigious school who is making changes to the graduation theme, where he's really racking his brains over it. But that's not what's important, because the waifu of the story will appear later, a girl with beautiful eyes who gets along too well with the teacher, and decides to give him a very special gift. But the teacher, very indignant, tries to scold his student for that kind of gift. Well, no, I've lied to you, as if I were going to say anything important about him. H. In itself, it has 2 24-minute episodes and, not counting what I just said and the rest of the plot that remains, the biblical relationship scenes are quite good, and the plot doesn't fall behind. But now I wonder, was it so difficult to make more episodes with this story? I just don't understand their creators sometimes. But oh well, that's how it is. Once upon a time, there was a poor boy who lives with a great trauma because of his irresponsible but very Christian mother. One day when the boy's father was not at home, he managed to observe how his mother meditated, parting the waters like Moses alongside another man, giving birth to an incredible distrust of women from that moment on, and becoming an avenger. No, he's not an avenger, but a Christian avenger. Several years later, his father has remarried, but due to work he hardly spends time at home, so he leaves his new wife all alone most of the time. Eventually, the protag realizes that, as he expected, his new stepmother is also a woman of God who likes to read the Bible with other men. Knowing this and based on his strong conviction of hatred towards Christian women, he decides to pay back that woman with his level 100 Excalibur that has a microwave as a bonus. In the midst of this plot with his stepmother, we also see how the protagonist takes charge of evangelizing everything he considers sinful, teaching them to pray one by one, gaining more souls for heaven. The interesting thing is to see the ecclesiastical methods that the boy applies to be able to carry out his holy mission. Will this apostle be able to evangelize his stepmother and complete the mission that our Lord entrusted to him? summer, that season full of cicadas, sunlight, and this one is washing the Lord with the doors open. Wait, that's not normal. Or well, yes, but anyway, whatever. We meet some siblings who are too close. Although well, they're not really siblings, they've just grown up together. But let's not forget that these are dirty tops. So right there appears the protagonist of this story, a woman whom the protagonist treats with great respect as the girl's mother that he considers his sister. However, she insists that he go along with treating her as his family member as well. But the protagonist doesn't seem to like the idea very much. Despite this, the mother proceeds to explain to him how to do the thick without bones, obviously all in secret from the younger sister. Over here we also realize that they have another sister, but due to problems with their mother, she decided to leave like the typical father who goes out for cigarettes. The problem goes back many years, where on one occasion the protagonist and the two girls managed to see their mother praying with much faith to Christ with a gentleman. These overly evangelical attitudes made the older sister distance herself from them, so if she does return now and finds out what her mother is doing with the boy, it would be a very serious problem. While the protagonist was reflecting on this, in front of him they were trying to forcefully deliver the Bible to a girl who turned out to be his other sister. The thing is, as we know, genes are inherited, and in this family there is a very strong gene that makes you want to get closer and closer to our Heavenly Father. Things are getting more and more complicated for the protagonist and his sisters, being pushed to find a solution to this situation, a biblical solution as it can't be otherwise. Will the protagonist be able to handle this so pure and innocent family that the grace of the Holy Spirit accompanies him? The story I'm going to tell you about next is not only good, but has a special touch. It turns out that we have not one, not two or three, but up to 5 different couples in the whole plot. That's right, because in this fact it tells us more than one story, as you can imagine. But before we all find out about the, so to speak, main couple, first we have a blonde boy who will do everything possible to brighten the days of his waifu, a waifu who, despite appearing to be the most mature in the relationship, is the complete opposite. We can see all this in the first chapter, where the boy invites his waifu to swim. But rather than swimming, they'll end up taking the date in a special Christian direction. Now, moving away from these two, we have a couple who are looking for a swimsuit. Then there's another story of a girl who wants to conquer her beloved, and that's why she asks her older sister and boyfriend for advice. We also have a story in which a guy is playing a Catholic game with a rather convoluted and super complicated plot, which will be the focus of everything. Yes, just as you've heard. The story focuses on the couple of a game that the boy is playing. Another story would be about a protagonist who is in the cafe with a rather quiet black-haired girl. And how can we forget, so to speak, the last H story, which is about a very random character, the very skilled shinobi with huge eyes. Goodness, try to complain later that you lack content, because I bring you everything. The best thing about this girl is that although they don't focus entirely on a single couple as I mentioned before, all the stories end up fitting into a single universe. I mean, an epic crossover where even Marvel doesn't come close to their heels. Anyway, a different and very entertaining H to spend a quiet night.
This begins when the protagonist downloads an application that allows him to hypnotize people. At first he is not sure, as he doubts the veracity of the app. Here appears a waifu that bothers the protagonist's group of friends, and the president also appears to bother a bit, and they end up discussing for a good while. The protagonist then decides to use the app to see if it works on the gal, and asks her to lift her skirt, which happens, leaving the protagonist surprised. When he gets home, a secretary informs him that the app is developed by the Hypnose company and that he was chosen to use it, and that it only works on girls. So the next day he sees the waifu in the hallway, and the secretary explains that the app shows you all the information about the subject, and it is very important to emphasize that you have to buy some special gems to be able to use the app. So he tests the app on her, and after doing some dirty things with her, the president finds out what happened. So in a committee meeting, they can't get that moment out of their heads, so they decide to ask the two directly, but the president gets a nosebleed and leaves, so she starts following the protagonist. The secretary warns him to be very careful where he uses the app, as he could be discovered, so the protagonist decides to tell the president to stop following him, and the president tells the protagonist that she saw him doing it with the waifu that day. The protagonist can't say anything to her, so he decides to go to the council room to use the app on the president later. After all this, the secretary uses the app to erase the president's memory so the protagonist doesn't have to worry. The protagonist uses the app constantly, so the secretary is satisfied with all the information collected, and the use of the app ends, and he is forced to pay for it. The Broda was doing calculations until he tells him that he doesn't want money but his goose, since it is much more valuable than money for the demons, so they proceed to do the act so that she brainwashes him, telling him that she will allow him to use the app but on the condition that he is willing to pay her, and he finally accepts. As a consequence of this, he has become a very distant person, but capable of using it, which totally changed his life. In this beautiful story, we have Renaison and Iano, a pair of friends. Renaison seems to have a little health problem and her dear friend Iano makes her go see a very professional and respectful doctor. Renaison arrives for her appointment and is warmly welcomed, ready to be attended to. The doctor puts her under anesthesia, as is normal. You go for a simple checkup one day and they put you under anesthesia so you don't feel any pain. Completely normal. I really think it's something basic, right? Although it says anesthesia, he only partially anesthetizes her so that the doctor can tell if the treatment is working, if he is doing his job well and staying on top of absolutely everything. As is evident, we see that in this consultation Renaison is suffering a little with this routine checkup, but at the same time she is having a great recovery with the super vaccine that the doctor has given her. Although it weakens her a little, this treatment usually weakens a little normally, after going to the doctor. Unfortunately, her friend seems to also be having a little health problem the next day and her friend takes her to see the doctor. Yes, the same doctor. That wonderful doctor who has attended to Renaison. This man is super professional. Apparently the doctor was very busy at this moment, but seeing that it is a new patient who has never been vaccinated, he decides that he does have time to attend to her, which is wonderful. The doctor begins to do a completely normal exam, you know, the typical one when you go to any doctor, and then he decides to give her the same treatment that he had given to her friend, but with the exception that this girl will not need it, since as it is her first time there, he wants to give her a different treatment. So the doctor takes out his magic vaccine and begins with the miraculous treatment. A fabulous secret power is in my hands when I unsheath my magic sword and shout. Obviously, since it is Ayano's first dose, it is a bit of a nuisance, but as more doses are given, she begins to feel a little better, more relaxed, happy. She feels great. Miraculously, her face changes completely. In fact, she was telling the doctor to keep vaccinating her, and there we see her very happy, grateful to her friend for having taken her there. But something doesn't add up for her. She believes that these doses that have been administered to her, well, there is something wrong with the doses, and she decides to go talk to the doctor, and when going to his office, she finds him watching the videos of the previous appointments and he says that he will report him, I don't know why, if they are casual appointments. And he tells her that if she does, then he will filter these videos, and she says no and that he should leave her friend alone, that she will do whatever he wants, and so here we see her, helping the doctor to continue administering more doses and looking for more treatments for possible illnesses. The truth is that it is something very, very nice. I recommend that you see it. It leaves a nice message and it is only one chapter. You can watch it in one night before going to bed and it would be great.
Remember to turn on the bell to not miss the daily videos. See you soon. Peace.